Hey y'all, Ted Simpson here, certified Bob Ross instructor working on his 8th year of teaching. Shaking. I accidentally dropped this, so I had to tape it up. And let's do an amazing painting here today. I'm using a 16 by 20 canvas today. Look at me. I'm using my 2-inch brush. I'm working a very small amount of a liquid white into the canvas. This stuff spreads like nobody's business, so don't overload it. So one of my students, just out of the blue, texted me an episode and a picture. I'm assuming he was giving it a try, or he wanted me to teach a class using that painting in an upcoming class. I responded with a couple other pictures I've done that were similar, and I think I have done this episode. This is season 14, episode 13. I've done this one before, I know it, I recognize it, but it's been a while. I'm not sure if we can do every element in a classroom setting in a 3-hour period. It depends. It depends on the number of students there, and mostly the time thing. It's all about moving on, you know, and not to tell too many tales here, but students do like to fiddle. We'll see. Maybe I can simplify this one a little bit, take out a couple of elements, and do this one in a class. Then again, I just put paint on my palette and I got this dirty. So there's my capabilities for the day. I've got my palette laid out here partially. I've got my titanium white, plenty of that if I need it. And moving down the colors, I've got my phthalo blue, my midnight black, my Van Dyke brown, my dark sienna, and my sap green. I haven't gotten my highlight colors out. I'm sure you'll see them in a minute. So the first thing I'm going to do here, double check my canvas. Perfect. Very, very small amount. And I'm just going to pull and tap, getting some color onto the brush, bashing it across the width of that brush, and let's just apply it to the canvas. Just get some color off, no big deal. You can do this super quick if you want to. Working my way down, Now look at that, all those nice little light areas we leave in there. You can leave them in, you can fill them in. Just looking for a little deeper blue up in the top corners, and a little lighter as we go down. Maybe down here we'll see a little bit of water. I'm not sure where and when, but having a little color out there, we can pick and choose on how much to fill in. Maybe, just like we always do, a little bolder at the bottom. Working my way up. I'm holding that brush sideways this time and just pushing back and forth. Look how easy that is to lay in some color. Now, I will go full student mode here. You don't have to clean the brush and the paint thinner all the time if you just give it a good scrub. Do that. Fold that paper towel, give it another quick scrub. The brush is clean. Simply crisscross strokes, starting in the middle and working up. Simple. Push hard to move and blend paint. A couple of light touches will take out brush marks, so make it as soft and singular color as you like, or leave it open. Leave it nice and varied color. A couple of final strokes, just like that. That's all you need to do. There's no real fiddling needed. Got my fan brush here. Let's see if I can find a smaller one. This one is just monstrous. I'm going to use a smaller brush. If I had a smaller one, I'd use an even smaller one. But big brushes work just as well. Got a little dried little bit over there. Loading plenty of color into my brush and just making little circles with the corner of my brush and moving the brush. See that? Just sort of stirring, getting some color off. That nice bright white outside edge is the goal. Now, I lighten my touch a little and I just add a little more. Already you can see that it's faded. Let me show you that again. Wipe some of the excess sky color out of my brush. Then I dive into my paint here, loading plenty of color. Like I was saying here, we want to just push and we really want to see that bold color. Okay, if we keep working it, it just dissolves. We want it to dissolve at the bottom. So already, if I just give it a quick stir, you see how it goes from super bright to faded at the bottom? That's it. I'm going to do one more here and then we'll switch to the blending stroke. Just pushing some color on, getting an interesting bumpy top there. Maybe this one just connects to it. And then I just lightly stir the bottom so it starts that transition. That's it. Now, using my brush, lifting the handle, I'm just using a few of these bristles at the very top. I soften the bottom edge. You can't really tell where that cloud ends. Just so soft. A little bit in the middle of the cloud is fine. Just give it a little touch, little tickle. Move on before you blend it all away. The idea here is just to tease some of that color, soften the bottom to the canvas, bottom into the sky, and then we do our little fluffs, that nice floating, lifting motion here, very much like a C or a reverse C. Very light touch and then a couple of finishing strokes. Done. We like to work in layers for these clouds. That way they kind of overlap each other a little bit. The bright spot of the lower cloud covers the faded spot of the previous cloud. Here's one there. Give it a little stir at the bottom. And then just go right into your blending process. Tickle, tickle, tickle. Lift, lift, lift. And we've got another cloud. I'm going to go ahead and just keep adding some little cloud forms here. You can make them all connected. You can just connect a previous one that you just want to play around with, or just make a series of individuals. What the heck? No big deal. I like to take them one at a time. Don't spend a lot of time on it. I start to lose the forest through the trees here when you get too fiddly with your clouds. It starts to get away from you. Gotta have a sense of urgency. I like that. I'm gonna steal that for myself. A sense of urgency here. God, that really makes sense. Now, I'm throwing some clouds on. I just realized I'm really probably not going to see. Bob's little finger clouds there. We got a big old mountain to put in here, don't we? I almost forgot what painting we're doing. Got so excited about these clouds. Super cloudy. I better take a look at my picture. I want to make sure I'm doing the right one. Okay, it is one of Bob's ridge style mountain forms here. So, you can always clean up your paint here, put it back up into a pile. There it is. And let's see, brown, black, a little bit of the phthalo blue. Scraping it up, spreading it off. That's how we mix paint, super quick. You mix it over a few times, that little bit of residue here on the palette will give you the flavor there. So, with a roll of paint here, we're going to create, let's try to figure out where our horizon's going to be, and that'll help us figure out how much of our clouds we got to cover up. See that? Just pressing in, pulling down, gives you a clean edge. Every once in a while, you stop, you get another roll, and I'm just trying to make an interesting outer edge. We'll fill in all this in due time. Just want to see an interesting border. Maybe a little taller. I don't know. As long as the edge is nice and clean, we don't care so much. What I'm going to do now is I'm pushing some paint on and then scraping it off. That's all I'm doing, is pushing a little color on, scraping it off. In doing so, we're moving and just removing some of the excess dark color. You don't want that thick bead of paint there, so push it on, scrape it off, and just this little residue that starts forming is all that we need. Pushing it on, scraping it off, something like that. No big deal. I am going to, once again, scrub the excess paint out of my brush once, twice, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Fold the paper towel, scrub, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really get some of that excess paint out. That's clean enough. Now just using my brush, look how puffy that is. Way too puffy. So you press in at an angle and those bristles collapse. Look at that. We just find the edge of the mountain and pull out. Maybe this mountain has a little bit more of a verticalness to it, so I'm just going to pull down. Forgot about we're doing ridge mountains here. They're a little more vertical, so I just pull. Look at that. The angle that you pull changes the whole look, doesn't it? That mountain looks like 1,000 feet high. Whoa, lost the paper towel there. So, the more I pull, the more it has a chance to mix with all this liquid white. So the real process here is just getting the mountain built out. And don't worry about the rest. You don't have to go over it 1,000 times. Just an indication of a mountain. I'm blending out the bottom here. There it is. Now, how do we highlight this guy? It looks like, I should have watched the episode a little bit, but we'll go ahead and just make it our own here. I'm going to take a little bit of brown and white, a little dark sienna, creating that marbly look here that Bob does so often, those craggy little veins in your pile here. Gives all sorts of variation when we're laying our highlights on. Now, you can have it just be dark sienna and white. Let me show you some differences here. This is just dark sienna and white. This is with a little brown in it. It doesn't matter. That's why I'm kind of not too worried about not knowing exactly how Bob did it. I'm just going to do my thing here. A little bit of that color now in a roll on my knife. And let's just come up here and just lay it on. Starting at the top, working my way down, no pressure, just letting that knife just fall away. You're going to want to figure out how much paint in the knife works for you and what angle I gently pull down to create the lay of the mountain here. Following as I move my way out, it's okay to leave some empty bits there. Over here, creating a little peak, get right up at the very top there. You don't want the shadow to be at the top. It wouldn't quite make sense to see the shadow first. See the bright bit of rock where the sun is hitting it, right? So just laying some of this on. Look at some of that brown, dark sienna, those different colors just coming out. No big deal. I'm kind of picking up a little bit of both here and laying it on very, very smooth, no pressure, letting some of that color come off. We're not to the end yet. There we go. That's a good start. Then again, if it's not, maybe there's a little highlight over here. I don't know. Ooh, there is now. So let's make up a shadow color. I'm going to use some titanium white, a little black, a little blue. And let's start there. No real ratio I can give you yet. You have to kind of find the color yourself. As long as it's darker than the highlight, lighter than the background, kind of marbly for variation effect, that should be good. Now on this side, on the shadow sides of my mountain peak, there's a little bit of this color. Not quite in the sunlight here, a little cool shadow effect. And even on this side of the highlight, if it's out of the sunlight, it won't be as bright. So I'm laying on a little bit of shadow. I'm not sure how much of this we'll see, but little bits of shadow wherever you think the highlight is bright. A little shadow going in to show the other side. Now what I like to do quite often here, can't believe I almost ran out of my highlight. So my highlight colors, let me make a little more. Some brown, dark sienna, and white. There it is. And then the other highlight I made, a little white and dark sienna just on its own, just to give a little different look. I like to come back to that highlight color and maybe put a little bit over, try to break up that vertical line. It looks a little weird if it's just bisected, you know, half and half. So I just drift a little bit of highlight over the area. Maybe I give a little shadow on the other side. We typically do that. Just to clean up that area where you put the new highlight. Over here, a little bit of highlight, break up this little dead spot here. Ooh, a little bit of light area, a little light paint on the brush. Look at how we add a little bit of extra highlight there. Any of these new highlights, I'm going to give it a little shadow. Helps create that 3D effect. A little bit of that extra light color highlights the highlight, doesn't it? Just lets it be seen a little easier. If I wanted to here, a little bit of pure white, just a little bit, graze it over a couple of spots. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. Extra bright highlights just here and there. Don't want to overdo it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Add some cool details here. I'm going to come back, add a little more of the other highlight here and there, something like that. This off in the distance here, we don't really know. It just kind of peters off. This is our main focus here. Now, maybe a little bit of that dark background color, just that black and brown, these deep shadows. These little crevices way here, way here, something like that, just to add some deeper shadows in your other bluey shadow colors. There we go. Look at that. All those deep holes in the rock. Now, I tell you what, I got to do it. I got to clean my brush in the paint thinner. Going to get all that excess white out of it. So just a couple of swishes into the paint thinner. Then I've got my beater bucket over here. That's in the basics video. You can see how I built my beater bucket. Really scrub out that excess paint thinner. And a couple of wraps on the easel. That's my Bob tribute. Now, with this big 2-inch brush, you can tap and let those bristles bend. Just tapping and bashing out the bottom inch or so of that mountain. I lift from the bottom up, that same cloud, fluffy movement, and I soften it. Tap, tap, tap. A lot of times in the class I have my paintbrush over here and I'm just patting it. But you can get a little tough with it. If you've got the right angle, you can bash this out. You got to be careful though that you don't overdo it. We're just trying to soften that color, create some soft mist, and then lift to take out some of those tap marks. See, some of this extra color here I don't really care about. I'm just focusing on the bottom couple of inches of the mountain, finding that correct angle. Then down here you can just remove all the rest of that stuff. It all just goes away. So we're just looking for a nice little floating mountain. I think we got it. There we go. Look at that, my brush looks exactly how it did. Just ended up with blue again. So, there we go. We've got a beautiful mountain range. I like that. Fast and dirty, and it just works. Now, let's get crazy here. Oh boy, the 1-inch oval. Let's make some trees. We are going to take my highlight colors here and just set them off to the side. I've got this, what was it, black, brown, bit of the phthalo blue, and a bit of green. Ooh, that might have been too much green. Is there such a thing? Too much green for a background tree color? I don't think so. If it is a little too green for your taste, just add black and brown to it, and you'll lose some of that green intensity. I think we got it. We got a big pile of color here. Uh-oh, we got a dog. I don't think she'll visit us. Just coming down here to sniff around looking for spilled snacks. I'll get her on camera again, I'm sure. So, we're going to tap into some paint here. Look at those bristles bend. Not the whole brush. Focusing on those top bristles there so I can have a little control of what I'm doing here, and holy moly, these bushes and trees just want to fall out of the brush. You don't necessarily need a lot of paint to do it either. Look at these little curves. I'm tapping at these angles, creating this outer edge. That's the main thing. I have a little too much paint. Look at it, I'm just sort of picking some up on the brush, moving it around. Maybe this is a taller tree. I've got the paint. I just tap and move and create all sorts of it. Look how light it gets as it works its way into the sun. Ooh, that just turned out way bigger than I thought. And I like it. If you want it a little darker, I just tap into my paint and tap a little more color up there. Look, there. It darkens it. We've got some color down here. Just tapping and moving, trying to create some interesting little shapes here. This is one brush I don't really use in my classes that much. I don't have a ton of them. You know, if I have a smaller class, then sometimes I'll break them out. I don't know. A lot of my classes are basic, simple, initial classes, but we do like to go into detail now and again. You don't always need the brush to do it. Sometimes it's fun to mix and match though, so I'll break them out time and time again. Look at that, just a little bit of dark color. Look how it creates a whole new thing. A whole new tree in front of the tree, perhaps. Doesn't have to be, just giving us options. Little one right there. I think Bob's was a little more to the purple side, but that's all right. I'm going to clean my brush real quick. Get some of that excess dark color off. Beat the devil out of it that time. And I just gotta grab myself some highlight color. Where is my yellows? Here's my cad yellow. Some cad yellow there. And maybe some yellow ochre. There we go. It was in my car overnight. It might be a little cold and therefore just a little firm. There we go. So it looks like Bob just used a bit of yellow, a little green, and made some basic highlights here. So with a speck, and I do mean speck, of paint thinner, I'm going to tap down, looking for that nice speckly texture here. Tap, tap, tap. And maybe add a little bit of green to it. There it is. Maybe a little more. And then using this brush, I start a little bit above the dark, and I tap in a little section here. Just light little taps, because the paint has been thinned. It's a very light pressure. Don't have to do too much here. You just dance the brush in these little patterns you create. Adding a little bit, working my way down. One little structure at a time, so to speak. One little canopy, one little section of branches. Just like that. See how I left a little bit of dark here and there? Now if I change it up a little, just going to add a little bit more green to the mix. Make it visually different. And I start the one in front now. There it is. I'm going to move on here, and I'm just moving over to the yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is a golden color here. Just dancing some on here. And one little drop of paint thinner at a time here, just to make it a little looser. I go back and forth, my greens, my yellows, to make different looks. Got a nice, ooh, there we go. Got to put one up there. Dropping this one in. Maybe there's a couple of different trees, all overlapping each other. I don't know. You get to figure that out for yourself when you're doing it. There we go. Lots of stuff going on here. See how I put it on? Load each bush on its own. Load that brush for every bush you do. That way you always have enough paint to do that one little section. Look at that. Lots of overlapping going on here. Something like that. I like it. So, down here at the bottom, let's mist it out a little bit. Just a little bit of mist. I think what I'll do, we could turn this into reflection if we wanted to, but what did I have here? I had a little bit of this color, and we're just going to create our land just by tapping it in. That same background tree color does double duty here, and it cuts off these bushes, creates a little bit of land. You tap at a certain angle, and what do we get? You know, call it Bob's lay of the land. There it is. All of a sudden, we've got some foreground here, a little prairie working for us. And maybe we come to a little pond. So I just pull down, pull across. We've got reflections. Let me show you that again. Pull down, pull across. Just like that. A little more paint in the brush makes them more visible. But the more you work it, the softer it gets. You get to play around, put them in, and change it as you see fit. So, maybe there's another little landmass here. Boom. Just cover it up. Cover up that water you just put in. You can have these little peninsulas or just flat land all the way across. I'm kind of just feeling it out here. Tapping a little bit of the undercolor and getting it onto the scene. This is just the dark color. Just the shadows. All this is going to change. Don't worry about it too much. There, little brighter right there. I like that. Ooh, look at what happens when you just move it a little further. Changes the whole thing. Same thing with this. Got this little river going on here. Boom! All of a sudden it gets a little smaller. But the land gets bigger. There we go. I'm going to wipe out the excess paint. Now with just a hint, we're talking, I can't stress enough, just a drop of the paint thinner. It's been a while since I've done this. Using the full width of my brush, I'm picking up some paint on both sides here. See that? And then tapping. Thinning down some color. Creating a highlight. I'm not sure if I got enough here or if it's thin enough. We'll find out. And what I'm going to do is I start in the back, of course, and we tap. Working my way down, trying to figure out the highlights here in our land. I'm using the angles of my shadows as my guide. And look at that. Look how much I did in just one brush full. Change the color a little bit. I don't know. A little more green. Some of the yellow ochre. Create a slightly different mix here, pushing forward. And let's come up here and build out another little section. It's just getting duller and duller as I move down and run out of paint, but that's okay. That's okay. Do a whole section at once. I can come back here and maybe change the color. I changed the color just a little bit. Adding in a little more. Figuring out what you like. The more you tap it, you lose all the little speckles and the colors all just kind of melt together. So the less you mess with it, the more varied it'll be. Yeah, I can come back here and I'm adding a little more color, hopefully not mixing it in. The more you tap, you can see the softer and softer it gets. And a couple spots might have a little lighter look to it. Some are deeper in shadow. All natural. Looks so good. Now, if I can sneak it in here, I'm just going to pull down a little bit. A little bit of the highlight goes into the reflections. And very, very gentle pull across. There we go. Let's see. Of course, that tiny, tiny roll. This is titanium white. Liquid white works. Either, whichever you feel you do better with. Very small rolls, cutting sideways and just creating an indication of a waterline here and there. Very subtle. Don't need to go too crazy with it. And now, maybe, I gotta find another fan brush. Let's use this big mamma jamma. What the heck? A little bit of the black, brown, blue, and a little bit of that green. I think I'm just about out of the green, but that's okay. We got a couple of evergreens to put in here. Bob went nutty with this and put in many different elements into the same shot, so to speak, into the same painting. So when you're doing this, you can leave out whatever you like. You don't have to put everything in that Bob did. It's up to you. A lot of times, like, your mountain takes up a big portion of your canvas, more than you thought, more than I did here. So you might not have room to put everything in. That's okay, leave it out. The next time you do it, you make the mountain smaller. Oh, there it is. Nice dark silhouettes of evergreens back here. Ooh, that's a little guy. He's off in the back. So, I'm going to clean my brush. Weirdly enough, at the same time I'm cleaning the brush, I stopped and got a little more yellow on my brush. There we go. Now I can finish cleaning the brush. Just wiping it on a paper towel off camera here. That single drop. I'm using that single drop of paint thinner today. A single drop. It helps keep the color pure. The liquid white will keep lightening the color. If you use the paint thinner, stays a little more of the same color there. So a little bit of the green and yellow, trying to find a highlight color. I like that. Come up here and just dance a couple of highlights in. Just so you can see them. Using the corner of the brush, just tapping down. Doop, 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 doop. There it is. Now, I had a little bit of a tap there. I got a little bit of that undercolor of the trees into my land, so I'm just going to tap a little color over it. Blend them away a little. Might create a little shadow there, actually. There it is. I like it. That is a fresh, clean 1-inch or large fan brush there. Works great for making tiny trees. Can you imagine? All right, let's take a little bit of that pure midnight black, cut a nice roll from it. We've got a couple of old dead birch trees here. So maybe there's one right here, touching and pulling sideways, laying that black out there. Something like that. Once you get the basic, tree started, I'm turning my knife upside down so I can clean up the left edge a little bit. This thing is so narrow. Boy, making it extra hard on myself, you know? I tell you, if I pull just a little further out, make that tree quite a bit bigger. Look at that. One of the weird things, and one of the things that I struggle with, is sometimes I try to make the tree a little bigger and then it looks too big. Doesn't quite look right. You want it just a little wider at the bottom than it is at the top. But there's, well, I'm going to show you here. You can see how it goes to a point a little too quick. It's getting that gradual change. That's the tough bit. So you just have to keep making it bigger sometimes, going back and making it bigger as I go up, until you get that degree of slimness to your tree that you like. And that tree sometimes ends up bigger than you thought it would. Yeah, that's not so bad. You're looking for that nice taper, I guess would be the word. And if it tapers too quickly, it just doesn't look right. You want to try to avoid getting too picky about that clean edge, you know? Sometimes you gotta let it be. Trust me on that. It'll get away from you. That's a nice big tree. Way bigger than I thought. I tell you what, maybe we'll make some smaller ones back here. All we care about is just making the dark inside, the shadows of this tree. We're going to make that peeling bark, that birch trees, and we just keep going. I'm going to make this one a little taller. Again, just trying to make it make sense to me here. Try not to fiddle with it too much. Cleaning up the edges on the right side. Some people just will put the paint on the other side of their knife and just use it like this. Either way, upside down, whatever works for you. And yeah, when it goes a little skinny in the middle, you just have to clean it up. I take a step back just to make sure it looks right. And this one here, it's got a little twin. Birch trees love growing in clumps, 2s and 3s and whatnot. There we go. And let's go with the upside down approach. Grow in all different directions here. Alright, now comes the fun bit. Using this roll of titanium white, you just want to let it drift over that black from the edge to the middle. And the trick is to let it just kind of float across, leaving these little stringy things. Look at that. One little knife load was enough to do one whole side of the tree. You gotta find the angle where it just sort of falls off the knife, just the lightest possible touch. That black is awfully soft. The titanium white, as you know, is very firm. So it has this weird texture to it that you're trying to do, where it wants to slide and move and create these little things. So if you try not to fight it, just let it fall off, it'll work. I wipe my knife occasionally, get a new roll, and just let that paint fall off. Kind of that little very shallow U to give it a cylindrical feel there. Now I do those right sides. For me, that works. Now we do the left side, and you can put the paint on the other side of the knife, or like I'm doing here, upside down. It's a little tougher to learn the upside down one. You know, it takes just a little more practice. I'll say it that way. It's a little weirder doing the upside down way. Just is. For whatever reason, for me, it's a little weird. So, keep going. Don't worry about happy little accidents there. It's bark. It's always falling off the edge there. If you don't get it exactly right, don't fret. It's gonna be fine. Big tree here. Sometimes it's a little easier making the big trees. You have a little more room for error. Creating a little bit of... Ooh, that turned out okay. So, what now? Just a plain old dead stalk there. Maybe this one has a branch coming off. The branch is so big, I'd rather do it with the knife than the liner brush. Maybe there's two. Get a start going anyway. Now I'll take my paint thinner and I'm going to thin that brown-black mixture so that it's very, very thin. Roll the brush to come to a nice sharp point. And now I'm just going to go up that little line there and maybe add some branches on this side or that. And just letting it fall over. fall out the brush. Maybe lift it up a little. There we go. One thing I was going to say here, if you were planning on putting leaves on these, it's even easier to disregard any things you don't like, because any of these branches will get definitely covered up if you're putting leaves on them. If you're not, try not to worry about it. Practice just letting that paint flow out of the brush and just moving your arms to let the paint come off in branch-like shapes, you know, just let the brush do its thing, and you're just kind of guiding it outwards, creating some little sticks and twigs. Okay, you can add some bigger ones here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to thin down a little bit of my titanium white. And if I just let it graze over the branch here or there, it adds a little bit of a bark effect here and there. Don't need all that peeling bark, just a little highlight on the brown-black shadow, wherever you think it's needed. No big deal. What is a big deal, we can't just leave that tree sitting on top of the grass like that. So with just a couple of taps, we cover up the foot with our grass effect here. Look at that, a little bit of something along the roots there. Puts that tree into the background. If I tap and move a little bit, you can create little indications of little shadows maybe coming off at the base of the tree, something like that. Yeah, the only major change I did, I eliminated a little sub foothill or something in the back there. I used a little more darker, browner mix rather than making up purple just for the background trees. You can do that, see which works better for you. What a great little painting. I like it. I hope you did too. Thanks guys, I'll see you in the next video.